All right. Hey, Vim is not only about speed. Well, what's it about then? Yes, spending days to become a few seconds faster is silly, but that was never the point. By the way, I did not. I generally dislike that take. I know it. I'm already one in. I didn't just become a few seconds faster. Okay, I became massively faster. Okay, and for me, it was about 2 months to really get fast at using Vim. But the thing is that when I say faster, I will say this one thing that's a little bit different than faster is probably what you're thinking about, is that when I say faster, I could go faster because I could go longer, and I was able to go longer because I was able to have more fun. I felt like I was having fun. I could keep on programming. My ability to program actually completely grew. She never said that to me once, by the way. I've never been said, "Oh, you're going longer." I was just able to be so excited. And so I could go faster because I could go longer. And yes, like my text editing was significantly better. Great. But I mean, I turned into a Daft Punk song. Bigger. Okay, not bigger. That actually never happened. But faster, longer. Yeah, it all happened. It all happened. Are we still talking about coding? Maybe. I think we're talking about coding. One common misconception I see being made all the time about Vim is the only reason why we use Vim/NeoVim is to be able to write code faster. It may sound a bit silly to climb the mountain that is learning Vim just for this single benefit, and indeed, I would say this is silly, but this is not the only reason we do it. The truth is we all learned Vim to be able to say, I use Vim, by the way. He's absolutely correct. There is unironically 100% correct here. I will say that saying I use Vim, by the way, is second to pair programming with somebody and using Vim and just watching it happen. Okay, because it happened to me. I was this person, so I'm not dunking on anyone that's doing this, okay? When I first started out and Anders backend used Emacs in such a rate that made me just go, I don't know what the hell he just did. I want that. I want whatever he just did. I want that right now. Like that moment where when someone else watches you do that and goes, shit, I want that. Oof. It's so good. That is the greatest Vim, by the way. And then they go, what are you doing? What are you using? And you say, I use Vim, by the way. It's so good. It's so good. It's just so good. It's the best. I don't know. That's a personal opinion. I love it. I love it because it happened to me. And I was already using Vim bindings in IntelliJ, and I was fast. I was great at Vim. Oh, dang. Oh, dang. You know what I mean? I felt shame after leaving him because I was like, I use Vim, by the way. And then he came up and said, I use Emacs, by the way. And just like Chad energy was flowing off of him. Oh, my goodness. And I envious. I became envious afterwards. You're literally describing how I feel about watching you use Vim. Yeah, I know that I do that to people, which I think is fun because I think it's one of the greatest things ever. Seeing, like, I love watching somebody else's workflow, and I love being impressed by someone else's workflow. I think it's great because then I go, what are they doing? I want what they have. I love seeing other people's workflows. I actually think it's a super cool thing, and I think people should do that. Because just because you think you have something good does not mean you know everything, that you've tried everything, that you're actually efficient at other things. Right? It's good times. You want to see mine? Later today, I will program, and we'll be doing Chat is Dumb, and you'll be able to see me walking here, okay? Right now, we're going to be building TCP, so what I'll be doing is actually building the application on top of TCP. We're going to be building out a fun concept where when you first make a connection, I expect a series of handshakes to go on, and so we're going to be building all that out, and it's going to be in Golang and Lua, so it'll be going back and forth betwixt the two. Pretty excited about that. I'm not going to make some stupid transpiler where you have to define it in Golang and then it transpiles the types into Lua. Like, I ain't about that. I'm just going to program it twice and we're going to call it a day. Do you think you should learn to touch type to use Vim? If you use Vim and you don't know how to touch type, I honestly have no idea how you do it. Real talk. I don't know how you do that. How do you do that? Not really. I mean, both the speed and memes are cool reasons to love using Vim. I just don't think it's enough to justify learning it. My intention with this article is to provide insights into what makes people cling to a supposedly ancient editor that only made sense when people could do nothing on a PC but write green text on a black background. To be fair, I think he's referencing the Stack Overflow. Perhaps this was probably the most ignorant article I've ever heard of in my lifetime was this one. The consensus among many Vim and Emacs users creates a picture that many tech users from a certain generation would be familiar with. Like, honestly, can you believe somebody wrote this crap? on Stack Overflow. Like, this is on Stack Overflow's blog. Can you believe that? You know, people talk about people that use Vim as being pretentious. What do you call this? What do you call an article like this? If Vim people are pretentious, what is that? I have no idea. Disclaimer, before we start on the journey, I must make it clear that my first experiences with Vim were just as smooth as nearly everyone else's. Yeah, an init file was hard. I'm going to let you know that an init file was a difficult initial thing for me. I first opened it by accident while typing git commit and made a mistake of forgetting to type -m and the message before pressing enter. This resulted in me having to close my terminal as expected. This is a great first experience, by the way. Great first experience. Then, sometime later, out of curiosity, decided to check out what it was about and learn at least the very basics of it to understand what was the point of it. The result of this was me trying every possible combination of keys possible and managing to do everything imaginable action an editor possibly could, except for doing basic things like writing hello world. This is good. This is good. This describes, again, when I first used Vim, I thought only people of a certain generation use Vim, and it's for stupid people, and it's not for real developers. I had that mentality. I want you to know, full disclaimer here, I was a normie, okay? I was a normie. Only years later would I finally decide to effectively learn how to use Vim motions. Initially, I did this with VS Code Vim's extension. By the way, this is a very great way to do it. I fully approve to learn Vim motions before you learn Vim. Honestly, learning Vim motions, it takes all the difficulty out of learning Vim, right? Because then at least you know what you're doing. You don't have to like hop in and learn how to do anything and also learn the editor itself. It's like you got one of them out of the way. You know what I mean? And if you only learn Vim motions, you'll be very happy. And eventually join the club of degenerates who swore by a tool no one else around them uses. I reveal this to you all in hope that you will realize that if you think Vim is pointless, outdated, or just weird, you're not the only one. We all thought that before learning the ways of Vim. I'm that guy. The reason Vim is awesome. So hear me out. The reason why I love Vim so much is not actually about raw speed, as in taking a few seconds less in each action or just having to press fewer keystrokes. It's all about flow. It's not just that we can write faster, but the process of thinking about what we have to do and effectively doing it is just way smoother. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. One analogy I like to make is having to go from point A to point B and having two separate paths to go there. The first way is a maze crowded with people everywhere, bumping at you every time, and is full of choices you have to make, and many of those are dead ends. So you have to keep your focus on getting to point B to avoid getting sidetracked. This is how I feel using an IDE nowadays. There's quite a bit of visual distraction. There might be something, I know we talked about ADD earlier. There is a lot of visual distraction when it comes to these editors. You know, there could be something about that. There could be something that maybe I just slot better into it because my brain has less to look at. You know what I mean? Real talk, could be. I can get to point B indeed, and will even get there quickly with an experience I have nowadays. It's just not pleasant at all. And it can become quite exhausting if I have to take this way constantly, and I'm always in a hurry. The second way is like a walk in the park. There might be some distractions if you look around, but they are often pleasant, and you won't realize they are there if you're focused. This is how Vim Motions feels to me. I can see my destination easily. It's a clear path to get there. If I have to go faster, it's just a smooth ride. I don't quite get this analogy because I'm just gonna be real for a second. I've never been in a code base that looks like this. And so often it's like this, except for all the plants have thorns and thistles and everything's trying to kill you along the way, right? Like, I understand what you're trying to say, that there's a lot of visual distractions and things you kind of have to jump through in other editors, whereas you get a more minimal experience. And I can understand that. I can understand that, the basics, right? Welcome to Jurassic Park. Yeah, you're pretty much in Jurassic Park. Even if both ways took the same time to get from point A to point B, I would still prefer the second way because it's just more pleasant and less draining. But it turns out that Vim Motion is not only smoother, but faster as well. So that's why people who learn it well often stick to it. Keep in mind I mentioned Vim Motions here, not Vim, because some people come back to editors like VS Code or IDEs like the ones from JetBrains after using Vim/NeoVim for a while. It's good. It's good to separate out the two. Vim Motions, Vim. You should really have those two separated. But most will still use Vim Motions on them because it's just better. To anyone who doesn't know Vim and its spiritual successor, NeoVim, are command line editors that run directly on your terminal. The way you navigate and edit text in it, which we call VIM motions, is so effective that many extensions and plugins emulate this behavior in other editors and even IDEs. What I want to focus on here are these VIM motions because I think this is where most of the value of VIM lies. That's funny. I actually find... Yeah, actually, no, I find, real talk, VIM motions probably have a greater value. I know a lot of people are out here asking me about Helix, like why not Helix, right? My general problem I have with Helix is that you gain no efficiency, meaning it's not a more efficient key pattern. There's nothing like uniquely different about it that actually causes things to be potentially more efficient. It's effectively the same. If you use Vim or you use Helix, you're executing almost identical amount of keys overall. Okay, that's fine. Let's just call that fine. So why not Helix then? Why not selection first versus movement first? Fair take. My next problem with Helix is that Vim keys are ubiquitous. Oh, you get stuck in Xcode, which I did one time, you still kind of have Vim emulation. Oh, you have to go use something else? You pretty much have Vim emulation. You go online to go use, you go do an interview online using Code Signal, you got Vim emulation. You become really good at Helix, you don't got it anywhere. You got, literally, you cannot transport those skills to almost anything else. Oh, you can transport it to Kakwan, I get it, but you can't transport it anywhere else. For me, this argument is the same as you had with Theo in your latest reaction. It is different to learn Helix the first time than to learn it after Vim. That's fair. But my argument about the motions is that it's still the same amount, right? You're still pressing the same amount of keys. I went through Helix. I learned a lot of the motions. And what I realized is that it is one stroke less, the same, or one stroke more to do anything in Helix versus Vim. It's just a different flavor of effectively the same thing. It's the same idea of being able to use just keys to be able to do a certain amount of manipulation on text. I get that. But the argument is greater than that. It's the ubiquity of Vim motions. Did it feel better? I thought it felt the same. It's like you learn one set versus another set. Remember, I went from QWERTY to Dvorak, and I didn't remap anything. So they're just key combos, right? They're not. That's it. I don't find them any different. You just learn the thing you're going to press. Like when I want to delete a paragraph, if I want to just delete a paragraph, DAP. It's not like I think about anything other than delete a paragraph. I just deleted a paragraph. That's all I want to do. I just wanted to delete a paragraph. I don't think like, oh, okay, I want to delete. I do want to go around it. And what's a paragraph, right? I just dab, right? I don't think about it. There's nothing that I do about it. If I want to delete inside those little the parentheses, I just literally DI parenthesis, right? And then that's it. If I wanted to CI in it, then I would CI in those parentheses, right? Like I don't think about the motions. I just think of what I want to do, and because I've used it long enough, the motions come out naturally, right? It just comes out naturally, so I don't think about it. So that's why, I think it's good to get that good. I think it's good to get that good at whatever editor you're using, and then you should want it to be as ubiquitous as possible. Hot take: Vim is a net negative. One, you don't know blind typing yet. Oh, hold on. Hot take: Vim is a negative. Okay. If you don't know blind typing, that's called touch typing. Yes, I do agree with that. Don't use Vim if you don't know how to touch type. Honestly, not worth it. You are a fresh junior who needs to constantly hop around and Google things. I actually disagree with number 2 completely. I don't think that it really has anything to do with needing to hop around. Or B, need a senior to use some specific IDE to get you unstuck. You make their job harder. I also don't agree with that. Like, you can still use Vim motions, and you can still use Vim, and you can still have an IDE installed to make it easier for somebody, right? Like, if I really needed to, and someone felt like they couldn't, I could open up VS Code. I have VS Code, right? The reality is some people prefer IntelliJ, and so if you have VS Code, you can have VS Code on your machine, right? Hear me out on this one. Actually, really the only reason why I have VS Code on my machine is because you guys paid me, what was it, $700 to use it for a week, and I literally used it for an entire week, and it was miserable, okay? It was effing miserable. I want you to know that I have never disliked my experience more in my lifetime than effing using VS Code. My goodness, that was awful. I never want to do that again. Ever. Ugh. Anyways, keep it okay. Let's keep. Let's go. Where's the bleep? I don't know. It's over there. I don't want to press it. Keep in mind, I mentioned Vim motions here, not Vim, because people come back to editors like VS Code and IDEs. Oh yeah, by the way, about the whole senior coming back and using your machine and not being able to use it because of their typical IDE that they use. Doesn't that exist with IntelliJ versus VS Code, right? So if they use IntelliJ and you use VS Code like all juniors do, guess what? They're going to have the same amount of kind of experience as you do. And they're going to be like, oh, I don't know how to use this. How do you do that? How do you do this? How do you do this? Right? To me, it's just a bunch of, it's just bogus. I think it's not a real argument. I think not a meme-wise, something a lot of NeoVim people need to accept is that for some people, probably more than less, VS Code is more efficient. Different are different. Doesn't mean that it can't be for you, though. I largely disagree with this, only because it's like this. Hear me out on it. This is an extremely, very specific way to do things, okay? Say you want to shoot a basketball, and you go up, the first time you've ever shot a basketball, you just shoot like that, right? Both hands, you put it all up there, you do all that. You could make baskets, you could probably even get pretty good at it. But you'll notice that nobody who's at the peakness of it all does that. They have a very specific way in which they shoot, in which they align their elbow, and they do a bunch of practice to do something, because even though it is not necessarily the way you would normally think of how to shoot, it's something that you have to train yourself to become good at. And I look at it a lot the same as Vim. You don't have to use Vim. You can most certainly take two hands on that basketball and shoot it. Nobody's going to blame you otherwise. Pirate software uses Notepad++. Ain't nobody caring. But if you want to get good at something, you have to be able to do something unique. It's funny that I say that because Shaq shoots like a granny. Yeah, and Shaq also had one of the worst free throw percentages in the entire league. You know what Shaq was good at? Being 7 feet tall and touching the rim by not jumping. Okay, that was a really big skill for him. Like, yeah, he was aggressive. He was a 7-foot tall person that could move like a 6-foot tall person. That automatically means you're in the NBA. You got to remember that if you're over 7 feet tall, the chance of you being in the NBA is 33%. That is wild. Okay, that is insane. 1 out of every 3 7 feet tall people play basketball for the NBA. Okay. Anyways, we can move on from that. Anyways, keep in mind, I mentioned Vim motions here, not Vim, because some people come back to editors like VS Code and, or IDEs, like the ones from JetBrains, and after using Vim and NeoVim for a while, but most will still use Vim on, Vim motions on them because it's no better, or because it's just better. To anyone who doesn't know Vim and its spiritual successor, NeoVim, I already read all this. I read this. All right, let's see. But these are so-called Vim motions are counterintuitive. Are you still telling me that they are the best part? Well, being user-friendly is a complex matter. And being beginner-friendly is just one side of it. Ooh, that's a very interesting take. I like that take, by the way. By the way, if you heard me read that last paragraph, it sounded like I had a stroke. I didn't have a stroke. This is a very interesting take. Just because something isn't beginner-friendly does not mean it's not user-friendly. There is a difference. Vim is not beginner friendly. It is pretty much common sense. This is pretty much common sense. But there are other aspects of the user experience that, in my perception, make Vim an amazing experience for advanced users that other tools don't even come close to. And often, what would be intuitive to a beginner can be slow or bothersome to an experienced user. It's a good take. I like that. I agree with it. I do not think that being beginner friendly is how we should define our tools as something you will use for 30 years. I wanted to say it correctly, Luxor. Don't make fun of me that I took a second there. Beginner friendly is a temporary phase, exactly. And so I don't necessarily think that is doing well arguing their point. I think they're doing very, very well. I think that's very, very good. All right. Take the word processor like Microsoft Word, for example. It has icons that often show exactly what they do, like an underline button that is a U with an underline, or an italic button that is an I with an italic. This makes it way easier for a beginner to use the software because many features can be discovered by simple exploration. However, if you're writing an essay, it would be unlikely that clicking those same icons whenever you need to style something would be practical. If you need to style things often enough, it's just much easier to learn shortcuts like Control-U and Control-I. What makes it user-friendly is that until you learn or even need the advanced commands, it guides you by the hand to do whatever you need to do. And when you learn the advanced commands, you become quite efficient. This is like, it's an okay thing. I mean, VS Code has a lot of ways you can do things quite efficiently. There are devs out there that really do know VS Code and actually learn them quite well. Really, this is more of a good argument against people that never learned their editor versus people that learn their editor well enough, right? And that's to me, that's a huge downgrade, is not learning your stuff well enough, which you should. Right? If I watch you and you use VS Code and you're just using your mouse and barely going along, I just find it weak. Like, dude, don't use something for 40 to 60 hours a week and never learn how it works. Just learn how it works. Just know your tools. I don't care that it takes some time. Just master it, okay? At least master what you use. Vim, on the other hand, it's like the Dark Souls of text editors. Fair point. This is a fair point. You largely go maidenless, okay? Probably end up using Arch Linux. It's a pretty good one. It's like the incarnation of no pain, no gain. There's no learning curve. It has a learning mountain behind the Great Wall that you have to climb. But on the other side, after you start climbing this mountain, you realize it gives you a level of productivity you simply cannot find on easier to use tools. It starts to feel even more intuitive than traditional way of editing. And after you understand its mechanics, it's amazing just how powerful you become. I agree with Vim Motions. Vim Motions, that makes sense. When I learned how to use Vim Motions, I just could not believe that I lived so long using Control, Shift, and arrow keys to highlight things. And I got really good at Control, Shift, arrow keying. I was really, really good. I mean, I was dang good at it. And man, I just sat there and thought, gosh, I cannot believe this. So you're admitting Vim is not beginner friendly, but you want to convince me to it's intuitive? It's pretty funny. Yesterday I learned about Tmux. Yeah, Tmux is fantastic. If you don't use Tmux, I mean, honestly, again, you are missing out. I mean, the fact that you can do that, Vim, APM, you can be in one project, go back and forth between projects. You crazy not having that. Okay, Screen Gang. Screen could be good. I don't use Screen. I'm too young to use Screen. Kitty is you can use Kitty. I think the maintainer of Kitty, if I'm not mistaken, is just too much of an asshole for me to use his product. I don't care how good Kitty is. I don't care if it's the greatest thing that has ever existed. I just can't have somebody that talks that way. I don't want to use or support their product. It's just simple as that. It's just simple as that. Yeah, COVID is a character. Yeah, I don't support people that are that. Simple as that. Anyways, take deleting a word. For example, when you first learn Vim, you can delete a word by moving a cursor to the beginning of the word and pressing DW. DIW is so good. Then you discover that D is the delete action and W is the movement, which tells you on what part of the text to apply the command. Then you learn that you can use other movements with the same delete command, like $D to delete to the end of the line, or DJ to delete to the current line and one above. Below would be the proper answer. Okay, you goofed that one up there. J, by default, moves the cursor to the one line below. What are you doing? What are you saying? Goof that one up just a little bit. So far, that may sound like you have to memorize many specific commands to do specific things, but let's say now you have to copy the text instead of deleting it. For this, you have to learn the Y command, yank. And this is it. You already know DW, $D, and DJ. Now you can just copy to the end of the word, to the end of the line, or to the current line plus the one below by doing Y, YW, Y $, YJ. Yes, all works as you would expect them to. But then you learn of more advanced movements that use text objects like IW, IP, and I closing parenthesis or opening inside text inside a word, text inside of a paragraph, and text inside a parenthesis. For those that just have no idea what this is. So if you're right here and you want to delete the word, what people typically would do is go BDW, right? Or you can go like this, delete inside word. Or you can do delete inside capital word, which means to delete everything up on white spaces on both sides. Super useful. It just becomes progressively more useful once you learn them as like secondhand. Once you learn them like you're playing a Souls game, it becomes really second nature. How would I paste while staying in insert mode? Control OP. I never use Control O though. Like when you're in here, if you press Control O, whoopsies, wrong button. Control O, you go into a special insert mode, DAP. I just deleted, now I'm back in insert mode. I never use Control O though. So, right, so if I highlight that, I yank it, then I go like this. I'm in insert mode, I'm typing, I go OP, I'm back in insert mode typing, right? Or I can do Control O, Shift P, And then I can do that. You know, it's just not from me. You know what I mean? It's just not for me. I'm not an ower. D percent sign is the most useful action for me. It deletes the full function call. Really? I have never used a delete percent sign. Delete percent sign. I don't know what it does. Delete percent sign. Oh, yeah, I do that. Okay, I see what you mean. Sorry, I was just trying to think of what you mean by that. Percent sign jumps between containers. So for those that don't know, if you have a bunch of text, a percent sign goes between there. Yeah, I use that all the time. Oh my goodness, when I was in back in my JavaScript days, when I did like function foo like this, my favorite way to delete was Shift V, F that bam bam, right? D. Shift V, F, opening parenthesis, percent sign D. I don't know why, just loved it. It just made me feel good. It made me feel good. Well, DAP only works with contiguous characters, right? So if I DAP right here, it DAPs contiguous text, not everything, right? So that's why D percent sign is really nice because it deleted the whole function because percent sign jumps between function opening and function closing. Anyways, all right, sorry. By learning just these three movements, you can now delete and copy all the text inside of a word, paragraph, or parenthesis that the cursor's in, even if the cursor's in the middle of the word or the paragraph or anywhere between opening and closing parentheses. Just by doing that, one thing he is missing is that you can also jump to it. So notice that I'm not in parentheses. Actually, I might be in parentheses. Okay, I am in parentheses. All right, so I'm right here. Hold on. I'm in here and I want to delete inside of there. I can go like this. CI opening parenthesis. Oh, crap. I'm still inside of a motion. Dang it. Hold on. There's way too many motions here. I usually don't use it for that one. Can I not CI that thing? Yeah, there you go. You can CI and jump into it. I usually use it for text. My favorite is to use it on text. Because on text, if I'm right here, I can go CI opening, CI double quote, and I jump right in and I'm starting to type. Right, and so it's really nice if you're going like this, do that, and go foo, you know, VIM APM, foo, right? If you're doing manual importing, it's nice. It's so intuitive. It becomes very intuitive because you already know them, right? That's the thing. It's not intuitive. It's practiced. I wouldn't use the term intuitive. It's practiced. Like anything you do, practice is much different, right? How do you do CI double quote backwards? You can't. You can't go backwards. It goes forwards. Practice is really important. That's why people can become really good with a lot of editors, is because they just practice it enough and they get good enough with them. Now let's say you just need to change some text to be all lowercase, and you discover online that there's a command GU that does that. Yes, there is GU, G capital U, G tilde. You can use this new command with any movements you learned before just by changing the command. GUW, GU, $, GUJ, GUIW, GUIP, GUI, right? Closing parenthesis works exactly the way you would expect. And if you use GU, it works like GU, right? That's one nice part is once you learn them, then instead of like, I can go VIW. I now highlighted the word. I can go YIW. I yanked the word and it's now in my paste buffer. Right? I can DIW. It deletes it. I can CIW. Now I'm in insert mode. I can literally do what he did. G capital UIW, and I've just made it up into uppercase. Unopposing craft dinner. I honestly don't care about your opinions. Like, to be real, if someone can use VS Code ultimately fast, great for them. I've seen some people that are pretty fast at VS Code, okay? But I meet extremely few people that are fast at VS Code. And my whole thing is to tell you to learn your tool. Notice that I've said that like 900 times. The only person that seems a little bit hurt is you, because you just keep going. So go be hurt, but just go be hurt somewhere else, okay? Just go anywhere else. I don't care where you go. Just go somewhere else, right? Just go anywhere. It's just not for you. It's just not for you. And that's okay. Like, don't spend your day getting angry. Spend your day doing something else. You'll be a much happier individual if you spend your day doing anything else than being angry on the internet. But now let's say you're good enough with Vim that you want to show off, and you can install Surround Vim plugin by T-Pope. By the way, T-Pope is very, very good. And just blow people's minds with YSIP that. YS, it says insert around, IP being the movement inside the parentheses we just learned, and this one being inside the character. I don't even use any of those things. Oh, that's fun. Surround seems cool. Maybe I should learn about a little bit about surround. That's really good, by the way. It's cool. Surround could be pretty fun to learn. I tend to not use any custom things, right? I don't use a lot of surround is very cool. I try not to use in Kickstart NeoVim. Oh, okay. I tend not to use custom things just in general, just because I don't want to learn keystrokes that won't work when I'm on a server or when I'm using someone else's Vim or doing anything like that, right? I just tend not to, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? I feel like I feel like relying on plugins would lower your efficiency in case you don't have it. Yeah. So it's cool though. Folky added Harpoon 2 to Lazy Vim extras yesterday. Dude, what a gentleman. What a gentleman. I do need to do some updating on Harpoon. What a gentleman. Realistically, how much time do you spend using someone else's Vim? Very little, but I do use like a server's Vim or a remote Vim every now and then. Harpoon 2 has not been released. I'm going to spend a weekend by myself and take out the last few things I want to do, and then that's that. And then I will call Harpoon 2 done. I'm saying no to most people's requests. Just so you know, I say no to most people's. I don't want your features in Harpoon. I want Harpoon to be very, very minimal, right? I want it to be very, very minimal on purpose. If you're a Vim user, this looks like too much to handle at once, don't worry. It is indeed too much to learn at one time. The ideal way to learn Vim is to learn the basic commands like this. Oh man, absolutely. And then get the hang of simple movements like this. Absolutely. I always suggest people just to really learn D, Y, P, W, B, like I and A. Like, just start the world's most simplest command. Start from there, and then once you get bothered and you want to go faster, you just learn the next command, right? Take some time. Anyone have a link to the article? It's on the Reddit. HJ, KNL, just learn the simple things, right? Then you become used to them, and they become muscle memory, and then you start getting used to more movements. The good part is that each thing you learn adds to your tool belt and can be used together with what you learned before, and that's why Vim becomes intuitive. It's indeed hard to start learning it, but after you start it, every little thing you learn expands your capacity exponentially. But what is the relation between this and the flow you mentioned before? The thing that Vim motions often feel more like a language you speak rather than a set of shortcuts you use. The more you use, the more you find alternative ways to say the same thing that comes more naturally. When you're learning a language like Portuguese, is this Brazil mentioned? Are we having like a Brazil mentioned indirectly? I feel like we're having a Brazil mentioned moment right now. And you want to order a bottle of water in Brazil? We got it. It's so mentioned. You may have learned to say things like por favor, você poderia me trazer uma garrafa de agua. I do not speak Portuguese. Okay. Fluent. I don't even know how to read it, okay? I don't even know how to read it. Could you please bring me a bottle of water? And you would probably have to stop and remember each word as you're saying it the first time around. Nailed it. First try. Really, first try. That was a first try. What did he call my mom? After you get more fluent in the language, sentences like, "E gostaria de uma agua sem gas." I would like a bottle of water. Or, "Me dá uma agua sem gas, por favor." Give me a bottle of water, please. May come more naturally and will basically get the same result. And sometimes you'll hear natives saying things like, "Uma agua aqui, mea chapa," which might also get the same result in an even shorter way, but it depends on things like intonation, context, and body language. Just like someone else's Vim configuration might feel completely foreign. Yeah, you can tell right away. I'm pretty good at the old reading other languages. The translation is wrong. I don't know what it means. And this part of the beauty of Vim motions, as you use it in some commands and movements, become muscle memory, and then you start to get new ways to do what you think more efficiently. And the more you learn, the easier it gets to do whatever you're thinking. Sorry, I'm dying. Oh no, I'm dying. Thank you, bro. Dumbbell. Appreciate that. I joined, I hear Prime speaking Portuguese. Por favor. I'm dying. Everybody, can you guys bring some incense to my funeral? And this part of the beauty of Vim motions, as you use it, some commands and movements become muscle memory, and then you start getting new ways to do what you think more efficiently. And the more you learn it, the easier it gets to do whatever you're thinking. This is a very good point, by the way, which is when you can make that transfer from brain to heart. if you know what I mean. You don't think about what you're doing anymore. It's just like when you play a video game. When you first play a video game, you have to think about like the things you want to do. And then at some point you quit thinking about the things you want to do and you start thinking about what you want to do, right? Like it's just like one step closer, right? You get it's one less decision thing. Ultra instinct. Also, people have misguided idea that Vim will allow them to write faster, and that this is something that would be better done with things like autocomplete, refactor tools, snippets, or even tool like Copilot instead of switching to a different editor. The truth is that you can and probably should use all of this on Vim or especially NeoVim too. They're not mutually exclusive. True. I use Copilot all the time. And most of the productivity gains of Vim motions are not from writing, but from editing. Fair. Yeah, fair. Copy a chunk of code to paste somewhere else in the code, changing just a parameter from a parameter list or a function, or even completely overwriting the contents of a function are way faster, smoother to do in Vim motions than they would be to use a mouse. Absolutely. That's intuitive, though. Also, by using a keyboard to do this, you can keep your hands on the home row and be in typing mode immediately. While if you're using a mouse, you have to reposition your right hand on the keyboard for proper typing. By the way, this is a great argument. Just use Vim motions, right? You don't have to use Vim. Use Vim motions. Right? You'll be much happier. These little movements like moving from typing mode, hands on row, to mouse navigation, left hand on keyboard, often near the control, and right hand on the mouse, to keyboard navigation, right hand near the left control, and right hand on the arrow keys for navigation like home and end, may seem too tiny to make a difference when you focus on speed alone. But they add up on cognitive cost to do every action you make, and removing the small steps can improve flow between thought and working on code in the long run. This is a fair take. There's a NeoVim plugin for, yeah, of course there is. You can use NeoVim inside of VS Code. Like, that's a fun part. Well, not exactly Vim/NeoVim as a text editor is an excellent choice if you want the smoothest experience with Vim motions and you're willing to go the extra mile to get the ideal environment for your personal needs and development style. But they are not for everyone, especially if you shiver at the idea of spending any time configuring and getting used to your editor rather than just writing code. By the way, this is in all editors, though. You want to get good at if you want to get good at VS Code, you have to spend an inordinate amount of time configuring and learning all the shortcuts. You want to get good at Vim, I would argue it takes less time. The only reason why is most motions and most shortcuts are all the same. So if I am in a file tree, to move around in a file tree is no different than to move around in a piece of code, right? Everything is all oriented that way. So you use the same motions for everything, whether you're in a file or not. It's easier. Your VS Code, on the other hand, you're going to have different motions, right? So you have to memorize contextually each little window, and you could definitely get good. Hands down, you'll probably get really good. But it just seems like there's a lot more things you have to kind of jump around with in your brain. I don't know. But at the end of the day, if you want to get good at it, like just starting to write code, and if that's the only thing you care about, I would say you're doing a disservice to your future self, right? It doesn't matter what editor you choose. Only considering the code is silly. You want to be able to learn your editor and become good at it, unless if you use Notepad++, and then you just use green font, and your name is Thor. Like, that happens. Let's see. For most people, I believe Vim motions inside your favorite text editor are the best way to go, since it provides the most powerful switching to Vim without most of the trouble. And if you want to become blazingly fast, you already know most of the Vim motions to switch to the actual NeoVim, which will be much easier. This is true. Absolutely. So I do recommend that all developers eventually try learning Vim motions on their editor/IDE, at least the very basics of it. That way you can start learning how to use the power of Vim without compromising too much on setting up something you don't even know you will like, though you will like it. Trust me. Please clap if you think this is useful information and the following. Okay, hey, clap. I use NeoVim, by the way. Well done. Thomaz Moura. Appreciate that. Clap. Clippity clap. This is good. I think he makes the good argument. This is probably the best argument for Vim, which is just use the motions. I think that's good. Use the motions. You don't have to use the motions, but use the motions if you want to have an efficient text editing. If you just don't care, you don't have to care. But I would argue you should care. You should care because you're going to be doing it for effectively the rest of your life. You might as well use the thing that's the easiest, right? Configuring NeoVim is 1,000x harder than configuring VS Code or Sublime or Zed. I've rage quit numerous times. Starting with Kickstart is literally the first time I've actually been able to get past the config and give Vim a real shot. That's completely fair. I think for me, it's the other way. Like for me, I think I probably have like a little bit of an anchor bias here. For me, having a script to configure feels easier than having a bunch of JSON options. I always have a hard time thinking about things in JSON options, right? But I think that's fair. Room temp take today. I have a very room temp take today on this one. This will be the last Vim article I'll probably ever do. Just because, the name, You know the name. The prime. Okay, why? Okay, why use this? Why this over this? Why use harpoon over telescope buffers? It's very easy. Okay, telescope, you could do. You have to fuzzy find your way into it. Harpoon is meant to be one click go. Okay, they're different. They're not meant to compete with each other. I did not write harpoon not having telescope. I wrote telescope, or I used telescope and wrote harpoon as what I want. Okay, harpoon is good. Harpoon is different than telescope. They're not the same. They won't be the same. They're never going to be the same. Again.